The Republican Party has a big demographic problem, and it's not getting any better. The Carsey Institute, a nonpartisan public policy think tank that's housed at the University of New Hampshire, looked at the data from the 2012 census and found that minorities are the fastest growing group in America for those under 20. In fact, ironically, 47% of all Americans under the age 20 in 2012 were from minority populations. But it gets worse for Republicans. According to the Washington Post, quote, if Hispanics grow to 20% of the electorate by 2024 or 2028 and the Republican presidential nominee performs roughly equivalent to Romney, Mr. 47%'s 2012 showing, it will be impossible, or damn close to impossible, for that GOP nominee to win a national majority. And if that's not enough to make a Republican's head explode, where they live most certainly will. The concentration of young minority population in the Southwest and South means that states like Texas and Arizona, as well as Georgia and South Carolina, all of which have been conservative readouts at the presidential level for decades, could be in real jeopardy for the party in the medium and long term. So, man, look at that chart. That's where all the minorities are there. That might be a little bit of a problem. So I want to ask you guys, will the Republican Party change their strategy to be more inclusive, or do you see them just putting in more voter suppression and disenfranchisement? What do you guys think?
No, it's over. The Republican Party is OVAH. There's nothing that they can do. They're going to have to completely change their entire core and inner beliefs if they want to win over all these minority youngsters in these southern states. Texas, when it comes to the 2016 election, I said it back 2 years ago in 2012. In 2016, Texas is probably going to be considered a swing state. It's going to be touch and go with this as a swing state. By 2020, Texas and a lot of the other states that you can see on that graph before, they're all going to be considered swing states. They're not going to be hard kind of Republican heartland anymore. The Republican Party, they've got to pass immigration reform, and that might hold back the tide a little bit. It might move it to kind of 3 general elections time, but I mean, I really don't think there's a lot that they can do. They have to completely transform the party, and I don't think they're willing to.
Oh, they're going to refuse to freaking go out and die. They're going to hang on to the very end. I mean, if you also look at the demographics of the states you just showed, it goes to show that a lot of those other states also have the most outdated infrastructure. I don't see how they're going to win within the next 4-6 years without trying to appeal to Hispanics and libertarians. It's just the 50-plus-year-old, conservative evangelical vote is not going to be able to carry them much longer.
Yeah, obviously the demographics are a disaster for the Republicans, but we have a system that is designed for 2 parties to, or at least the illusion of 2 parties to exist. So I feel like eventually they're going to make some adjustments. In the short term, they're going to try these ridiculous voter ID laws and all that. But long term, and you already see some people in the party, they're going to try and reach out to
like Jeb Bush.
Well, fuck Jeb Bush.
But for example, that's just an example of him actually reaching out.
I know.
And of course he was booed, I think, when he tried to reach out.
And
so.
John McCain did that before, and then he ran for president, and he walked all that back, and it was a disaster. George W. Bush was actually got the most, the highest percentage of Latino votes for a Republican ever, I think, in his first 2 terms. But if the Republicans just stop being racist, overtly racist in their rhetoric, there's no reason to believe that by 2024, or whenever this apocalyptic date is, that if they're if they treat these voters like any other voters, then they won't be all right. It stands to reason. Our history shows us that when new immigrants come here, they tend to vote more liberal, but after a while, like the Irish, like the Italians and all that, eventually like you'll get enough share for both parties. So as long as you're not actively alienating people, then you'll be all right. And like immigration reform could be a step. Maybe looking at like how Rand Paul talks about immigrants could be a step. He doesn't talk about how he wants to self-deport, make them feel so unwelcome that they'll be self-deported. Like Jeb Bush also, but he's a liar, McLiarson, so I don't know about that.
Okay, just before, I know Jordan wanted to jump in, but you talked about kind of the Republican Party respecting these minorities. They'll start to respect them when there are a number of kind of rich, kind of Hispanic people who are then going to start funding the Republican Party. If that happens, and there's a number of rich minority people that start funding the Republican Party, that's when you might start to see a shift, and that's when they might start being respected once they have some money. But at the moment, there's simply not enough money there. The current kind of political system that there is in there is just most of the rich people who are funding both parties are white people, so therefore they're the ones who get the privilege, and that's why the Republican Party just don't care about the minorities at the moment, because they don't have the money.
Right, Jordan.
Yeah, God, it hurts to say this. Sean had a lot of good things to say. Everybody else, you're completely wrong. Stephen especially. And not that you're wrong in your conclusions, but you're wrong in your complete approach. One, the Republican Party is not OVAH, OVO. We said that in 2008, and in 2010 the Tea Party happened. But here, the real reason you're wrong is because you guys are approaching this from a logical standpoint and from a naive standpoint that political parties exist to resolve actual issues from differing views, which is what would be true if a two-party system worked. What is actually true in America is that political parties exist to promote their own self-interest, and the Republican Party is much better at this than the Democratic Party, and the Republican Party will be just fine, probably not in the next couple elections, but once they finally get their heads out of their you-know-where and move and adjust, they will be not only fine, they'll probably start beating the Ds.
I'm not saying that they're going to completely disappear off the face of it. I'm saying that as a winning party to win national elections, they win local elections.
No, you're completely wrong. If anything, the opposite's true. These will regain local elections, which is what used to be true in the South. We voted red nationally and blue locally, especially in Arkansas. And here with the Tea Party momentum, we've switched red all the way. But where I'm going with this is what the Republican bread and butter is, hey, we're missing votes. We're up against the ropes. Let's create an issue out of whole cloth that is not a partisan issue. Make it a partisan issue. Maybe throw a religious bent on it and pick a side that's going to energize the base. It's what they did with abortion. Abortion did not used to be a partisan issue. In fact, more Democrats used to be anti-abortion than Republicans until Pat Buchanan came along. For as horrible as a person he is, he's a brilliant political strategist, made it an issue, created this one side to be the right side, and made that part of the Republican platform, and it energizes the base. And, hey, right or wrong, Americans vote more on social issues than they do on policy issues, or I guess economic issues. And hey, as much as you think, Bush tanked the economy, yada, 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 I know people, good people, who will say, but I'm not going to vote to take the life of an innocent, unborn child or whatever. Like, that's more important to me. And that's a whole other discussion. I don't want to get too far into that, but I'm just saying that's the facts. And what the Republican Party is good at is doing that. Who founded the national parks? Who started the conservation movement? Republicans. Teddy Roosevelt.
The
They
EPA.
used to be the party of conservation. The EPA happened under Nixon. Now, who's destroying the environment? Republicans. Because that's what they do, man. They have no problem completely changing their agenda. So we're treating this like, here's what's important to Hispanics, here's what's important to blacks. Republicans aren't doing that. Here's what's important to Asians. Republicans aren't doing that. But what you're getting wrong is that Republicans have this ability to find this common thread in Hispanics, to find this common thread in African Americans, and tap into it. And with Hispanics, it's Catholicism. With African Americans, it's evangelical Christianity. They're going to create an issue, and they're going to energize the base.
Okay, so I have a lot to say. Okay.
Wait, can I just jump in before you say that? Because I want to point out that they already have the issue. If you look at the charter school issues, the people lining up for charter schools are black and brown people. And the Republicans are in favor, in large part, of charter schools. The Democrats are more bought off by the teachers' union, so they're against it. So if they weren't like racist pricks, they could say, look, it's so obvious. Your Democratic politicians are against you from going to schools that you're lining up to go to. So they could do it. Okay. It could happen.
Okay, and speaking of the racism issue, that's why I feel that the Republican Party is in trouble. And look, I can't say that I feel too bad for them because of that, but it's because of their platform. And this is why they're losing in this demographic battle, is because their platform is sort of a whites-only platform. And look, I'm gonna get a lot of the argument of, yeah, but guys, we have black people, black guys. We got 3 of them: Herman Cain, Alan West, and Michael Steele. So look at that. We're the inclusive party. You guys are the racists. Now, I know I'm exaggerating just a little bit here, because for the fact, I'm pretty sure that there are black conservatives, successful African-American business owners that also hate taxes and love Jesus. There's probably actually a lot of people like that. But, and the important thing is, they're not necessarily, like, no matter how much you hate taxes, for the most part, you're not going to vote for a party whose members run on a platform of, if you're black, you're lazy, get a job, and get off my welfare. And a party that makes stupid slavery comparisons.
But you will.
No.
It's something that is important to you that's not an issue. Make it an issue and side with you.
But yes. I'm going to get to that. Hold on. Now, it's kind of the same with the different minority groups here. Look, but here's where the GOP fails, okay? The GOP fails because they don't see the inherent discrimination in our system. They don't see it. It doesn't exist. If you don't make it, that's your fault. And that's not a message that resonates with minority voters, as well as the poor, but it attracts the racists and the plutocrats. But to get to your point, right after this, I just want to say there's a common attack by those on the right that minorities only vote for Democrats because of the handouts, right? Well, rich people vote for Republicans also because of the handouts in the form of tax cut. When it comes to voting, you vote for the guy that's going to help you improve your life, that's going to make sure that you have the opportunity to succeed, that's going to help you solve issues that are important to you. Addressing your point, Jordan, voting is a selfish thing. Think it's going to help you and your family, and not for the guy who's going to push you down and fart in your face. If I wanted that, I'd vote for my big brother.
No, look, the Republican Party, as it is in its current state today, will not exist in 8, 12 years' time. Now, I agree that, that the Republicans, if they find kind of that one key issue, maybe the charter schools, then they can change. But with the Democratic Party, I see it, at least from my perspective, that they're going in one sort of direction with most of their issues, just becoming a bit more liberal, okay, yes, and establishment at the same time. But with Republicans, they're having to go and jump from issue to issue to issue until they're just scatter firing at the moment to try and find that policy. I mean, we talked about the IRS scandal in the Benghazi. You see them jump from one to one until they're shown that their facts are wrong and they've been completely disproven and debunked, and they have to move on to the next one. And that's the problem with the Republican Party. They can't kind of stick on one winning issue. And abortion, I'll agree, that's probably one of the few issues that they've managed to stick and win, and I don't think the country will ever really change away from their opinion on that. But on everything else, the Republican Party, they will change on it, because their hand will be forced at some point, no matter what. If they want to win elections, their hand will be forced, and therefore it will not be the same Republican Party as we have today.